testicles.
In Venezuela.
Sexual anarchy.
Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police.
Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
Out in the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We actually start off with some pretty good breaking news that I just want to address before we dive into other things. Congratulations to new Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. The newest member of the Supreme Court, the first African-American woman to serve on the Supreme Court. So this is a big level. This is very, very big news. Big level. All right. Well, anyway, we're starting off real good. This is huge. Big news. Great thing to hear. Wonderful. And so welcome to the Supreme Court. Now, will that change a lot of the decisions coming out of the Supreme Court? Very likely no. Because we still have a conservative majority. Nonetheless, here we go. Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's awesome. Great news. All right. That's the good news. We got other news. Oh boy. All right. So for one, we have, of course, conservative cancel culture. We're going to talk about that. We have a fun story about Russian Karens literally destroying their own stuff. Fun. We have Donald Trump not happy about True Social. Kellyanne Conway says something interesting, sort of. Whoa. Let's see. And then we're going to get into slabs. What are slabs? Well, it turns out they're the next bubble. And it's looking kind of likely that it's going to burst. And by the way, yes, this is related to student loan debt cancellation. So that's a really interesting kind of in-depth, deep dive story that we're going to talk about. And let's just say it's not good, but it does explain a lot of things. So I'm going to dive into that. End of the show, last story. But first, let's have some fun. We'll start out with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But first, or should I say Marjorie Cancel Culture Greene. But first, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Helps us out greatly. Do it. Do it now. Help us. Help share us around.
Internets.
Around the internets. We need your help. All right, that said, now let's get into it. Good old Marjorie Taylor Greene. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is suddenly very concerned about the safety of members of Congress. That's interesting. In fact, she just recently made a very serious report to the Capitol Police, asking them to investigate a potential threat of violence against a certain member of Congress. So now, who is this member of Congress? What are these threats? Again, we should take these very seriously, right? Well, who is the member of Congress? What? Herself. Oh. Great. So now, what's the threat then? Well, again, I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody as high profile as Marjorie Taylor Greene getting some threats. I mean, again, politicians get threats all the time. News media folks get threats all the time. Okay, so now let's go to that. Now, I can't show you this because, not because it's so horrible or so awful. No, it's because it's copyrighted. It's Jimmy Kimmel. So now, this is a joke from comedian Jimmy Kimmel. In fact, on his show Wednesday night, Kimmel said this in response to Greene, basically calling Romney, Collins, and Murkowski pro-pedophile for voting in favor of Ketanji Brown Jackson, who now is a Supreme Court justice, the newest Supreme Court justice, and the first African-American woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court. So definitely a watershed moment, a very, very important moment in American history. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, no, we're going to pedo jacket all of them. Everyone, even members of my own party. So now, Jimmy Kimmel on his show, when he read that that tweet, he basically remarked, quote, "Wow, where's Will Smith when you really need him?" Now that's a reference to the infamous Oscar slap, to which, of course, no one was seriously injured for one, and nobody died. Now, you could get into the argument whether or not that slap was warranted and that whatever. I'm not getting into that argument. But okay, is that a threat on somebody's life? Is that a threat against Marjorie Taylor Greene? Oh, by the way, here's what he said afterwards. Quote, "Besides that being disgusting, this woman is good pals with Matt Gaetz, who is currently under investigation for trafficking minors for sex. It's scum and scummer." Now, Greene took the clip, and here's what she tweeted. At ABC, this threat of violence against me by Jimmy Kimmel has been filed with the Capitol Police. And they're going to do what? Would you want them to go arrest Jimmy Kimmel? I'm sorry, like, first of all, where's the direct threat from Kimmel? Again, context matters here, right? I have seen what threats look like. I know what they sound like. What Jimmy Kimmel said was a joke, and jokes are protected speech, okay? Now, right-wingers, for example, on their respective programs, which are not comedy programs, they're opinion programs, they have said far worse than Jimmy Kimmel. You've had people make far worse jokes than Jimmy Kimmel. And in a lot of these cases, that is also considered protected speech. Nobody in their right mind considers what Jimmy Kimmel said to be a credible threat against Marjorie Taylor Greene. Apparently, though, as we all know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not in her right mind. She's never been in her right mind. And now she appears to be in favor of cancel culture. What happened, Marjorie? I thought you were pro-free speech. I mean, this is, come on. Look, by the way, right-wingers, culture warriors, free speech people, are you going to come out and defend Kimmel's right to free speech as a comedian? I mean, y'all defended Dave Chappelle when he made horribly transphobic comments. Are you going to stand up for Jimmy Kimmel? Are you going to stand up for Jimmy Kimmel like you stood up for Joe Rogan for spreading disinformation about COVID-19? Are you going to do that? Where are you guys? Are you going to defend the First Amendment? Dave Rubin, Glenn Greenwald, where are you guys? Where are you? Where are you? Well, I know. Dave Rubin already shut down because his brain took in too many high-level ideas. He's got to go in recovery mode. No. Look, again, the irony, right? So, look, she's very concerned, apparently very concerned about a joke that she wanted to, report to the Capitol Police. However, when there was actual violence at the Capitol, aimed, by the way, at politicians, Democratic politicians, and of course Mike Pence, coming from Trump supporters, well, she didn't mind any of that. No. She didn't care about that. In fact, she consistently downplayed the violence at the Capitol, voted against awarding congressional medals to Capitol police officers that were injured in the Trump insurrection, and did not have nice things to say about the Capitol Police. In fact, she consistently went after the Capitol Police. You all remember this.
Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police.
So, I mean, hey, look. And now she wants the Capitol Police to devote their resources to investigate a comedian for making a joke. You're kidding, right? Get out of here. And by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not one to speak. Again, I've shown you the video of her stalking AOC's office, doing creepy things, stalking and chasing after a shooting victim, David Hogg. She, did a mock-up pic of her holding a machine gun near lawmakers' heads. She liked a Facebook post about executing Democrats. And by the way, that's not to say the other insane things that she has done and said. Remember the video where she blew up, what was it, like a Prius with the word socialism painted on it? No, she's insane. She had, and this was, by the way, a gun giveaway. Now, all of that, of course, is protected speech. And so what are you going to do, right? It's all protected speech. So why not have Kimmel be able to do his protected speech? And then, of course, she also goes into pedo-jacketing everybody. Again, what she was doing to Romney, Murkowski, and Collins, and Ketanji Brown Jackson as well. And so what they're doing, of course, is literally calling people the worst kind of person imaginable, a child predator. Now, that is dangerous. That is actual danger, right? Because guess what? Who here wouldn't do violence in order to protect children? I think there's a lot of people that would. And so, and the problem comes around when you falsely, or people falsely allege that people who are not predators are actually predators. And so when you do that to people, you put them in danger, right? Again, the greatest example of this is the pizza shop, where a man with a gun came in. I believe he took a couple of shots at people, demanding to free the alleged children that were in the basement. Except there were no children and there was no basement. People could have died from these idiots. That's the danger here. Now they're going after Disney. I mean, they are basically straight up alleging that anyone who is against Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, for example, is a groomer and a pedophile. Again, that's super dangerous because there's no evidence of any of those things. And so as a result, again, knowing how this is America, knowing how you have at least a third of the country that's certifiably insane and propagandized, brainwashed, to believe in these things, to think that people working at Disney are all groomers. And again, you have guns everywhere. We're a country that's awash in guns. I would not be surprised if Disney becomes a target in the next mass shooting. Because again, we have a mass shooting basically every Tuesday in this country. And so this rhetoric coming from the right, it's very, very dangerous. And I'm afraid that something like that is inevitable. Hey, you know what? Instead of wasting the police and the authorities' time investigating comedians, perhaps the authorities need to look into right-wing domestic terrorists. You know, where the actual credible threats are. But no. Members of Congress on the right wing would apparently rather they harass late-night comedians who are basically doing nothing but having a little bit of fun calling out your disgusting lying asses. Gross. Let's go to some Russian Karens. A little palate cleanser. All right. Amidst the economic sanctions against the Russian economy, which are, by the way, devastating working class people in that country, as a result of Putin's war, wealthy Russian citizens are now throwing a fit over not being able to buy fancy handbags. Oh, sad. So now, first I want to go to Russian model Victoria Bonya. I'm going to show you a video here where she's basically, and this is in front of her 9.3 million Instagram followers, it's this video of her is basically her destroying her fancy Chanel handbag worth several $1,000s. Take a look.
I have to say, if Chanel House does not respect their clients, why do we have to respect Chanel House?
Wow. Now, Bonya is just one of several Russian influencers who have filmed themselves cutting up their Chanel handbags in protest after being banned from buying goods from the French luxury brand. After closing its stores in Russia, Chanel stopped selling its products to people outside Russia who were intending to take them into Russia. Now, a move that has prompted several Russian influencers and socialites to accuse the brand of Russophobia. Ah, yes, Russophobia. That's exactly what it is. It's Russophobia, yes, oh yes. Now, look, that's not to say that there haven't been crazy weirdo sanctions or weirdo things that companies or brands that have done that makes you think, how is that going to affect Putin? It's not. For example, Russian cats were banned from competing in a cat show because they're Russian. What does that have to? What does that have to do with anything? They're cats. They're not bombing Ukraine. They're not flying the MiGs that are bombing Ukrainians right now. They have no control or influence over what Putin does. And so, look, and again, there are examples of some weirdo virtue signaling from companies that are doing some stuff, right? And understand they're, of course, doing it as a show of solidarity to Ukraine, and that's fine. But again, that's not really going to do much. It's not really going to help, all right? Because at the end of the day, we do have to remember that the Russian people, the average Russian person, is not our enemy. Now, the Russian government under Vladimir Putin is. And sadly, unfortunately, Putin has some pretty high support. Whether or not that's because Putin can literally just arrest you or kill you because he's an authoritarian, well, okay, that might make the polls swing in your favor a little bit. That said, there are a lot of brave Russians that are protesting against this war. And so those people need to be, you need to give them credit, is what I'm saying. And so they deserve all the credit in the world for standing up against Putin, when, of course, doing so could mean that you could basically disappear. And so, now, that said, rich Russian kids, they're not part of that group, as you can see. Now, I have another video here. This time, this is TV host and actor Marina Ermishkina, who has 299,000 followers on Instagram. Here's what she did in her video.
Уважение к себе. Я против русофобии, и я против бренда, который поддерживает русофобию. И хотя я давно за осознанное потребление, бывают исключения. Если за Шанель нужно продать родину, то такая Шанель мне не нужна.
You know what that reminds me of? Conservatives blowing up their Keurigs. I mean, that's really it. They already got your money. Chanel has your money. And by the way, Chanel's not cheap. I mean, some of their handbags are at least $2,000 for one. And then, of course, they range from like $2,000 to $10,000. Hey, but they already got your money. Go ahead. Go ahead and cut them up. Wow. Like I said, it's just like burning your Nikes. It makes no sense. But here's what she said, by the way. And this is, I'm going to translate that from Russian. I believe that's what she said. Not a single bag, not a single thing is worth my love for my motherland, she wrote in a caption. It's not worth my respect for myself. I am against Russophobia. There we are again. I am against a brand that supports Russophobia. Chanel is just an accessory that at some point decided to humiliate people, my compatriots, decided to discriminate against people on the basis of nationality, which I will not tolerate. After all, the main thing is principles, and not what is in your hands, but what is inside you. Okay, so let me give you my thoughts on this one. So look, one of Putin's talking points is they're canceling anything Russian, right? They're canceling Russian culture. They're canceling Russia. They're doing these things. Now, again, to go back, I disagree with some of the bans, right? Some of the cultural bans. Because again, I don't think Russian culture is at all what's bad or what's going on. No, what's going on is the attempted cancellation, if you will, of Ukraine. Again, Putin himself has said the biggest issue, the biggest problem was the dissolution of the Soviet Empire, which Ukraine was a part of until the 1990s. So Putin wants to go in and cancel Ukraine. That's what's going on here. And so, yes, the pushback against Russia and Russians is a result of that, as a result of the outrage of what's going on in Ukraine right now, a war that could have absolutely been avoided. There's more. DJ Katya Guseva, who has 587,000 Instagram followers, said she was following Ermishkina's lead when she had also cut up her black Chanel handbag with scissors. Quote, I had always dreamed that a Chanel handbag would appear in my wardrobe. And it happened last year. But after I learned about the brand's policy towards Russians, I decided to remove these bags from my daily life until the situation changes. I am against Russophobia. I am against a brand which supports Russophobia and discrimination against women based on nationality. We Russian girls are beautiful, whether we have a Chanel bag or not. While they're talking about Russophobia, and I'm not saying that doesn't exist in some capacity, you realize that right now, your government is doing war crimes. And look, I'm saying this as somebody who calls out U.S. war crimes. And I understand that our government doesn't really have that much of a leg to stand on when it comes to calling out war crimes. Well, that's why you have to call them out where you see them, no matter what government's doing them. In this case, you have the Russian government that has been doing war crimes. People are dying, people have been killed, civilians, and yet you have these rich Russian Karens that are worried about a handbag. I'm sorry, get some fucking perspective. Understand, okay, these are rich, spoiled kids. Okay? These are not working class Russians who, as a result of the sanctions, are struggling to pay their bills, struggling to put food on their table, and look, by the way, are also exposed to massive war propaganda on a daily basis, because right now, Russian state media is basically the only media that you can actually hear about the war. And so that actually does kind of remind me a little bit about what Americans had faced during the Iraq War. Now remember, you had nonstop corporate media propaganda that was supporting that war, about how that war is good. And of course, you had working class people in the United States saying, okay, I guess, whatever. Does Russia, or I'm sorry, does Saddam have weapons of mass destruction? I don't know, I guess. I mean, this is what the news media keeps saying. And so I understand that there's a propaganda issue as well in America. That said, right, getting back to the rich kids, they're not struggling. Their biggest concern right now is that they can't buy a Chanel bag. Chanel is being mean to me. Daddy, please do something. They're being Russophobic by not selling me a $2,000 handbag. People are dying. Maybe, get the fuck over it. Or better yet, look, Russia is run by oligarchs. Yeah, again, that's something that kind of have in common with the United States. We also have our own oligarchs, although they're called entrepreneurs. Or self-made businessmen, job creators in this country. But look, oligarchs have a little bit more direct control than they do here in the United States. And so I'm wondering if maybe these oligarchs might get a little tired of their kids bugging them for Chanel bags. And might tell Putin, hey, look, this whole Ukraine thing didn't really work out very well. Maybe you ought to not do that. Maybe you ought to make some peace. Because our kids won't shut the fuck up about these handbags. And I really, really do not want to have my yacht taken. I have no problem with sanctions against rich people. And so I think it's great. Go after the oligarchs' yachts. I love it. Go after their apartments. Go after their... By the way, some of the newest sanctions targeted Vladimir Putin's daughters. Totally fine. 100% fine with that. Because they're going to survive. They're going to be fine. Just a little bit inconvenienced. And maybe that inconvenience might be enough to end this horrible war. And if you want to call me Russia-phobic for supporting sanctions against wealthy, elite Russians, then I don't really care. Please do. Because I know that I actually do care about average working class people. Whether it be in Russia, China, Iran, anywhere there are working class people. Because these working class people do not have any power. They don't have the influence. But guess what? The rich people do. The oligarchs do. The children of the oligarchs do. So by all means, yes, keep going after and putting the financial screws to these rich Russian brats and Karens and their $4,000 handbags. Please do. Until this war is over. Am I clear? I'm clear. All right. Former President Donald Trump is not happy with all the recent news of the disaster that is Truth Social. His social network pump and dump scheme has reportedly unraveled before it even began. I mean, yes, sure, we had a soft launch, but it's still not even available on 40% of US devices. So, not even launched on all the different platforms. In fact, according to the Washington Post, things have gotten so bad, and I've reported on this before, how it dropped 93% signups. Well, now, digital downloads have plummeted for the new Twitter clone. In fact, downloads have decreased so drastically that it no longer is listed on the App Store charts. The app, which was downloaded roughly 200,000 times on its launch day, plummeted to an average of 10,000 installs a day last month, according to estimates from the analytics firm Sensor Tower. The app has been installed roughly 1.2 million times since its February 21st launch. So now, look, yes, that's a disaster, no doubt about it. Now, some of you might be like, well, look, hey, it's new. Maybe it just needs a little bit of time to get the legs out from under them, you know? I'm just saying. Well, under normal circumstances, okay, to be fair, it's not an easy thing to launch a social media network. It's actually very, very difficult. And it's very expensive, yada, yada, yada. You already know that. However, Truth Social has something that no other social media company, when they started out, had. The former president of the United States. You would think that somebody who got 74 million votes in 2020, that's 2 years ago, in an election would get more than 1.2 million people installing your social media network. I mean, seriously. You'd think. And again, that's 1.2 million installs. That doesn't mean 1.2 million people are using it. That's really sad. Now, okay, I'll be fair. Maybe it'll pick up when Android gets released, if it ever gets released. That said, you know, if it does get released, I still don't see why. Why? Now, there's more. According to the Post, there are already concerns among investors and executives working for the social platform. However, it appears social media users and investors aren't the only ones losing interest. The Post reports that Trump's sons just recently joined the platform, and the former president has not shared any posts in weeks. Now, you would think that as soon as they had launched, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump would have been first in line or high up on the list. But no. Ivanka hasn't signed up. Not even Tiffany wants to sign up. So, basically nobody's interested. Now, behind the scenes, however, it's actually worse. Tensions apparently are rising as Trump reportedly is not pleased with the app's progress. Insiders familiar with the situation recently spoke to the Post under the condition of anonymity, saying this: Trump has privately fumed about the app's slow rollout and is mused about joining other platforms, such as Getter. Nah, man, Truth Social, my own platform, kind of sucks so much that I might actually go and join Getter. How bad does that have to be for you to join something else and be like, no, not at all. I'm not at all interested in getting on Truth Social and actually doing things. That's your own site, sir. So now Devin Nunes, it's even better because Devin Nunes literally quit Congress to run this piece of crap. And he apparently is having a pretty hard time. Spurred by the former president's frustration, Nunes has worked to install his own people atop the troubled company, probably just to steal money, leading to the resignations of its chief of technology, product development, and legal affairs. According to the people familiar with the turmoil, the departures were first reported by Reuters and Politico. They also say that Nunes has regularly traveled Trump's Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach to brief the former president and discuss the platform's issues, of which there are many. Trump is holding out hope that the platform will eventually be lucrative. But he has been reluctant to post on it because, quote, it is not ready for prime time, a close advisor said. I got news for you. It's never going to be ready for prime time. It's got a lot of problems. People are telling me it has many, many problems. We've got hackers. We've got wait lists. We've got server problems. What we need is a complete and total shutdown of Truth Social until we know what the hell is going on. All right. Fun. Fun times. All right, let's go to Kellyanne Conway. Former White House advisor Kellyanne Conway is back, and she seems to be taking a very interesting stand against money in politics. What? Hold on. Hold on. Let me show you a video here. This is actually on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast on Thursday. And she is there to promote a video. It's called Rigged. And by the way, you can only watch it if you pay, because of course. And what it is that it is a Citizens United funded movie claiming that Mark Zuckerberg used his wealth to fund voting measures that helped Donald Trump lose the election. Here is her statements on that.
It's important that we know what was done long before Election Day in 2020 to almost pre-buy some of these places and make it difficult to have a level playing field. You know, Steve, in reaction to a lot of the Zuck bucks, as they're called, you have state legislatures now trying to pass laws that prevent this kind of massive private funding from tipping the balance, from making one vote, one person less valuable in the future. So that isn't, which is that if you just look at the money, and we know money is the mother's milk of politics, I get it, but there's a reason that we have limited individual contributions. There's a reason that any man or woman in this country can only give so much. We don't want people to be able to give so much that they're buying the election, that they're funneling their money through different ways.
Okay, we don't want people buying the election, and I agree with that. I don't want people buying the election. Isn't that a little ironic? Because you're promoting a video put out by Citizens United. Now, for those of you not familiar, I mean, I'm sure you know the Supreme Court case, right? That Supreme Court case resulted in corporations being able to engage in unlimited spending on elections and other issues. So if Mark Zuckerberg, for example, wanted to fund a video that was sort of campaigny, but not officially part of the Biden campaign, for example, or any campaign, right? That's an advocacy video for a certain issue or against a certain politician. He could do that. And that's Citizens United. They allow you to do that. And let me give you more details about that. Back in 2010, a conservative nonprofit group called Citizens United challenged campaign finance rules after the FEC stopped it from promoting and airing a film criticizing Hillary Clinton, too close to the presidential primaries. A 5-4 majority of the Supreme Court sided with the conservative group, ruling that corporations and other outside groups, like Facebook, can spend unlimited money on elections. Huh, weird. In the court's opinion, Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote that limiting independent political spending from corporations and other groups would violate their First Amendment right to free speech. The justices who voted with the majority assumed that independent spending could not be corrupt and that spending would be transparent, which of course turned out to not be true. Those are the most ridiculous assumptions I've ever heard. For one, Citizens United literally allows for dark money groups to give unlimited contributions. You don't know where the funding is coming from. They're 501(c)(s. You can hide the money and just this flood of money. And now, secondly, of course, independent expenditures are a form of corruption, because here's how it works. These groups will take donor money, sometimes from anonymous donors, and sometimes you know the donors, depending on what kind of group it is. And mainly they're wealthy donors or trade groups, corporations, and they will run ads that support or oppose candidates or issues. And by the way, I mean, there's allegedly some rules. However, do we really follow those rules? Does anybody actually ever follow those rules when the FEC is pretty deadlocked and are prone to inaction? So what you have is these ads that are, by the way, in order to show the ads, you have to buy airtime. You buy airtime on cable TV. You buy airtime on Facebook, YouTube, basically anywhere, social media, and cable news. And so what that does, that endless flood of political advertising, well, what is that designed to do? It's designed to sway people, basically, in order to influence political opinion. And so a lot of these ads are incredibly misleading, or some of them are just incredibly politically charged or emotionally charged. And so that's basically a way to influence voters to vote a certain way or vote a certain for a certain candidate or against a certain candidate. And that's what happens. Now, these platforms, by the way, have no incentive to show the other side, unless, of course, they have money. Now, when you're talking about progressives, well, there's a reason progressives don't run a lot of ads, because they don't have a lot of money. And so if you don't buy airtime, your side, your message is not represented. So you want to talk about a lack of a level playing field? It's true. There is not a level playing field, and there never has been, at least in this modern media atmosphere, ever since the decisions from the Supreme Court. And I'm not just talking about Citizens United. I'm also talking two of the earlier ones, the ones that made corporations people, and the ones that made money speech, which led to Citizens United. Those are issues. That's why everything is broken in our political system. Now, again, this is not really a Democrat or Republican issue. Yes, a lot of Citizens United, a lot of these decisions were pushed by a conservative Supreme Court. But Democrats have adapted to taking corporate and money as well. And Barney Frank famously has said, well, we're not going to unilaterally disarm. No, we're going to take corporate money too. So the Democrats take corporate money and Republicans take corporate money. And of course, what do they do? Well, you only look at their decisions. Generally, they tend to represent corporations. So this is less Democrats versus Republican. This is people versus the owner donors. Look, and when it comes down to it, I'll agree with Kellyanne Conway in the fact that I don't want Mark Zuckerberg's money in our elections. I also don't want Sheldon Adelson's money, or the Mercer family's money, or Warren Buffett's money, or George Soros's money, or Ken Langone's money, on and on. All these billionaires and corporations. I'm not at all interested in having their money in our elections. No, I think we should have publicly funded elections where everyone is given equal airtime on all the different networks. Now, of course, the networks are never going to agree with that because they make a ton of money during electoral election season. And so, but again, I also don't want Walmart money, Chick-fil-A money, or any of these trade groups, corporate groups, or union groups to give money in elections. Money, I don't believe, is speech. And I don't think corporations are people. And I don't think they should have speech rights. I think the whole system is just broken as a result of that flood of money, private money, in our elections. Now, the fact that she only seems to agree when it comes to her side being represented, and Mark Zuckerberg allegedly, and by the way, Mark Zuckerberg is going to give money wherever he thinks that it's going to help his business. So if giving to Democrats is going to help his business, he's going to do it. If giving to Republicans is going to help his, his business, he's going to do it. If it's giving to both, and you do see a lot of companies giving to both sides, well, they do so because it both helps their business interests. And so Zuckerberg being a CEO, we know he's going to donate to people that help him. Now, usually, again, that is Republicans. And again, this isn't a Republican versus Democrat problem. It's the corrupt political system that is the problem. This is not one company. This is not just one Supreme Court decision. This is many. This is decades of businesses stacking the court, billionaires influencing our laws and our lawmakers in order to, basically elevate the corporatocracy, where corporations, run our system. We live under corporate rule. If Kellyanne Conway was honest, she would actually call out all the money from all different sides. Instead, she just calls out Mark Zuckerberg, and that's it. So, of course, when it comes to honesty, remember, this is Kellyanne Conway. So honesty is something that we're never, ever going to see. All right. Moving on. One last story here. On Wednesday, the Biden administration announced another extension of the interest and pay freeze on federal student loans. So a lot of us were hoping that he would take the initiative and actually cancel federal student loans, or at least a portion of it. Now, that freeze first came during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic and was extended several times, was scheduled to expire on May 1st. However, the Biden administration extended it to August 31st. Now, this comes as inflation, supply chain issues, increased gas prices have all hurt the average American worker. Now, as I mentioned, progressives have been pushing for Biden to cancel student loan debt, all of it, even as some more moderate Democrats have said, well, we could do $50,000, as Elizabeth Warren had been pushing for, or even $10,000, as some other establishment Democrats have been pushing for. But I'm basically going to tell you why that's not going to happen. While we're not going to very likely not get any student loan debt cancellation. Now, before I get into that, Biden has the authority. It has been shown. There's a memo. The Department of Education, they buried the memo or attempted to. That shows that the president does have the unique power, the unilateral ability to cancel all student loan debt. That is federal, of course. Private student loan debt would not be canceled because that's not under the purview of the federal government, just to be clear. Now, it's been demonstrated that forgiveness would not only be popular among Democratic voters, but it would be a boon for the economy as well, because you have a lot of people that will be free of these debt obligations. That said, there is a group of people that do not want this. And so that group, you're going to be surprised, or not really, Wall Street. Yes, Wall Street apparently is very, very happy with lots and lots of student loan debt. And so now, why is that? I'm going to get into the reasons. So now, something that doesn't get pointed out enough is how student loans, the student loan debt specifically, has been packaged and turned into a security. They are called student loan asset-backed securities, or slabs for short. So now they are both private and federally insured student loans that are bundled together, rated, and sold in tranches to institutional investors as bonds. And so those institutional investors, of course, can be banks and financial institutions, hedge funds, etc. That debt is turned into investments that are considered to be low risk and high return, or at least decent return. Investors holding slabs are actually entitled to coupon payments at regular intervals until the security reaches a final maturity. Then they can trade the assets in speculative secondary markets. There is even a forum where slabs investors are able to anonymously discuss assets and transactions free from unwanted public scrutiny. So here we go. We have another short situation. Because slabs are considered to be a sure bet for the banks, hedge funds, and big players, they will use that package debt to then ask for more money, more loans, or use it to make riskier bets. Have we seen this before? Oh, yes. Given that many student loans are guaranteed by the government and that student loan debt obligations are difficult, if not impossible, for many to escape, again, you have to go and show the court very, very specific circumstances of where you're not able to pay your loans. Now, I have talked about one of the recent cases where you had somebody that became permanently disabled, finally actually able to get away from their student loans because there was no way they'd be able to pay them back. Even then, the Biden administration had fought on the case, on the side, of the student loan companies in order to collect those student loans. Until, of course, there was enough pressure to get him to back off. And so, again, I'm not surprised at all, and you shouldn't be surprised that Biden is a main architect of this and why he would be against this. Remember, he made it so that borrowers could not declare bankruptcy from student loans. There's a reason he is called Credit Card Joe. So now, the next issue here related to slabs is how dangerous are they? How many of these student loan asset-backed securities are out there? It turns out a lot. In total, approximately $600 billion worth of slabs, $1 trillion, have been issued since their creation in 1992, and possibly more. And again, it's not just the slabs themselves, but also bets related to them, references to them that could be tied in trillions of dollars of other investments. These slabs have been issued to investors at rates that outpace other asset-backed securities and include new private loans made by Sallie Mae and newcomers like Sophie and Navient, who was a Sallie Mae spinoff. And because it's so big of a market, if slabs failed, if the investments, say you had a even more default, a mass default, what do you think that's going to do to them? That has the potential to impact the entire U.S. economy. But, hey, it's a good thing they're rated safe, right? Well, not so much. You see, slabs are rated from AAA to B. Now, B is a junk, right? So that's a junk bond. But all the slabs are marketed as safe because of that marketing, of course, you have demand that is greater than supply. So you have all these investors that are looking at slabs because they're marketed as being super safe and very lucrative, and that number continues to grow because tuitions get higher, people take out more loans, and the government isn't picky about who they loan out to. And so you have that situation, and you also, and by the way, this is Wall Street 101, the more toxic and risky that debt is, the more they can make off of it. That's even worse. So that incentivizes terrible investments. Now, these loans, as I mentioned, they're not safe. Just like during the subprime mortgage crisis, the more toxic kind of loan, the more risk, the more reward. An example is SLM Private Education Student Loan 2009 CT Trust. So that is a slabs product created from loans issued by Sallie Mae. And it consists of more than 40,000 loans made to students that were attending unaccredited trade schools, such as truck driving. Okay, that's fine. Cosmetology school. Okay, sure. And even a dog walking school. Dog walking? Dog walking. And again, these are all unaccredited colleges. For all we know, there could have been Trump University in there. Now, that debt doesn't go away either. So if you took out money, and this was federally backed, and not even federally backed, the private loans are also securitized in this as well. And so if you take out a private loan for this, for their dog walking school, and don't land a job dog walking that it earns you $60,000 a year, well, I mean, again, you're screwed. But because of federal rules, you're still, it's still very difficult to discharge even a private student loan. So now that said, you would think that that would look very risky. All these unaccredited schools, this high amount of debt, and the high amount of defaults. However, when the SLM Private Education Student Loans 2009 CT Trust was issued back in 2009, one of the raters, Moody's, gave the slabs a rating of AAA. The highest rating they could give. The highest. This seems to be a pretty, I don't know, toxic security. And yet, highest rating ever. Highest ever. Why? Well, it turns out that Moody's is incentivized to give out AAA ratings to basically everyone involved. Now, there are 3 rating companies, all of them private: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch Ratings. These companies are paid to rate the slabs and are also tasked for government oversight as nationally recognized statistical ratings organizations. The credit rating agencies not only rate the slabs, but are paid to rate them by the loan issuers, like Navient and Nelnet. So wait a minute, you are paid by the very companies that you are tasked with rating their securities products. Is that not a conflict of interest? It is. It sure seems like it. Now, it gets worse because these loans are dependent on people getting themselves into massive amounts of debt. So now, the thing about these loans, right? The thing about these securities is that the longer life you have on the loan, the better off they are. So if you're in an IBR, for example, an income-based repayment plan, that's good for them because they can continue to sell and repackage that debt over and over and over again after the maturity dates and make a return on investment. That incentivizes, once again, for tuitions to go up, for loan amounts to increase, making it so, people have a very, very difficult time paying off those loans, so they have to take longer and longer periods in order to pay them off. Combine that with the fact that you cannot discharge them through bankruptcy. Well, this is very, very lucrative for them. Now, the problem, of course, comes when we start talking about student loan debt cancellation. If you end that, you end those loans, and there goes their profit. There goes those investments. And so, now, that said, the more toxic the loan, the more it's worth. But because it's toxic, if you default, it's also bad for them. So if you don't pay that, unless they bet against it, I should say, this whole situation, though, really looks like it's akin to the subprime mortgage crisis. But it's even worse than that, because during the subprime mortgage crisis, well, mortgage-backed securities were, there was at least some collateral, right? That was collateralized debt. This is not collateralized. What are they going to do? Take your degree? No. There's no collateral that they can take to at least recoup some of their losses. And so they're completely out of all of it. Gone. That means trouble if you have all of these securities that you have leveraged in other, not only getting loans for your company, but also investing in other things with that money with expected returns. If that dries up, that's gone, then you're at risk of default. You're at risk as a investor of losing everything you have that is based on these securities. So that's why this is a gigantic bubble. And this bubble, like many, many bubbles, is going to burst unless something is done about this. And by the way, getting back to these rating agencies, right? Now, the rating agencies, they realize that if they do not rate even the most toxic securities as AAA, then they're not going to get sold. That you're going to have people that are holding these loans, holding these securities without any collateral, and are going to eat that entire loss. So what are they forced to do? AAA, 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 rubber stamp. And that's it. And so that also creates huge problems with that entire market. That's going to make financial institutions fail. And if those institutions fail, other institutions that rely on money from those will fail. Lending will dry up for student loans. And so the whole house of cards is going to fall all in on itself. In fact, Samantha Bailey and Chris Ryan did a report called The Next Big Short: COVID-19 Student Loan Discharge in Bankruptcy and the Slabs Market. And it gives more detail and a warning. Here's what they wrote. It is likely a question of when, not if, the slabs market will collapse. And when it does, private student lending will be crippled, carrying serious negative effects for student borrowers, as well as the colleges that they attend that rely on that funding. If the 2008 recession was any indication, these developments could happen very quickly and ripple into the rest of the United States economy due to the sheer size and scope of student loan debt in relation to overall consumer debt. Student loans are at $1.9 trillion. And so what is that? What's going to happen if you have that bubble that bursts? Recession, bailout, depression? I don't know. This is all coming back to why Biden's not going to do a damn thing about it. Biden's going to sit there and hope that this bubble does not burst while he's in office. Because either, in order to solve this problem, you would have to go in and regulate slabs, which of course would make these investors lose a lot of their value. And since banks and credit card companies and debt collection companies and student loan companies are all whispering into the president's ear, control many members of Congress as well, he's not going to intervene because he listens to those corporations. And it's not just Joe Biden, but I think any president is not going to risk blowing up the entire economy by trying to, and by the way, it's inevitably going to blow up anyway. And so this is a loser situation. This is the next bubble, and it is going to burst. Whether or not somebody does something about them or not. And yes, as some of you point out, what's going to happen when that happens, when that blows up, is there will be massive bailouts on these financial vehicles. Bailouts for the banks, but not for us. And so that's, I think, the main reason why we are never going to see, not with Joe Biden and not with any establishment Democrat, student loan debt cancellation. Maybe on a very, very small scale, $10,000 is still on the table. As long as it keeps that money going, as long as it keeps these markets continuing and these banks able to make money off, betting on these security or securitizing your student loan debt, as long as that debt exists, they're going to make money off of it, and they're incentivized to keep it going. It's an absolute, utter disaster waiting to happen. All right. Student loans will also affect the global market, says Daniel Bangle. True. Yeah. Some of you are asking, what won't Bernie? No, Bernie would. Bernie doesn't care about the banks. Bernie's actually somebody to do that, but I think that, and given and understand this is a pretty big rabbit hole to go into, and maybe there's some things that I don't understand about it, but I think that there would have to be some sort of regulation put into place and a decommodification of this market before they can actually do some cancellation. And I want there to be cancellation. I want you to cancel it all. But you have to do it in a way, of course, that doesn't crash the economy. You got to do probably more than just canceling it to make sure that these banks don't explode and have to get bailed out by their stupid, unregulated. I mean, again, this is a situation where regulation would have actually prevented this if had we regulated financial instruments. I seriously thought that Dodd-Frank separated the rating agencies from the lenders. Dodd-Frank, you understand, has been chipped away at massively over the last, ever since it was passed, it's been chipped away against. And so, and again, you've had both Republicans and Democrats basically deregulating the markets once again under both Democrats and Republicans. They don't care because ultimately, at the end of the day, they work for their donors. Okay. So that said, thank you for going around the nation with me today. Sorry to leave you off on such a bad note, but wow, that slabs thing is quite disastrous. As somebody who has student loan debt himself, yikes. Scary as hell. Okay. Read some super chats. Lot today. Wow. Jonathan Leiter, thank you for the $5 in honor of KBJ and history being made today. Yes. Wonderful to see. Nope says on MTG, you can't discount the Georgia white supremacist reaction to Kimmel, evoking an image of a black man slapping a white woman. Yeah, it's a good point. Also disastrous. Stacey William, thank you for becoming a member. And thank you for the very, very kind $50. Wow. I've been watching your videos for way too long and not joined already. Thank you so much for all that you do. I've got it. Oh, thank you so much. I've got tons of respect and admiration for you. You're awesome humor. Thank you, Stacey. I really, really appreciate that. It's super, super kind of you. And thank you for joining. Thank you for becoming a member. And thank you for the donation. I really appreciate that. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the $20. Forgive the student loans for the midterms. Yes, I'd love to see that. Dango Bango has some suggestions as well. Watch Jim Quisition's video on Mappy, what to describe capitalism as can also be applied to student loans, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Jim Quisition, fantastic content. Great content creator. Good rule of thumb to follow is to help explain why a lot of stuff doesn't get fixed is if it helps non-white, the ruling class will be against it. Even if it helps regular people, it doesn't matter. It's all about generally rich people and the donors. Virginia Thomas, aka Ice Dragon, says never ever for us. And Monty Darno says politicians work to get reelected. If the public benefits from that is a good byproduct, we must revisit government and parliamentary representation. Agreed. Agreed. Can you imagine a parliamentary system where we actually have competitive third parties that aren't represented just by corporations? Boy, we have a long way to go for that. Whew, long way to go, but we can dream. Occam's Taser, thank you for resubbing with Prime for 11 months. Appreciate that. And thank you for all of you watching on Twitch. Great topic today. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Really, really appreciate you. Very, very kind donations today. Like and share the stream if you haven't already, too. Like and share the videos if you're able to. And thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you all tomorrow. Have a great night.
I will eat your ass.
Sexual anarchy.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of bees.
Big massive dump.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Disappointed.